In the 1980s, the New York City Coalition Against Hunger began as an organization that would just help emergency food providers and urge for long-term solutions. But today, it represents over 100 soup kitchens, food pantries, and 1.5 million low-income New Yorkers. Unfortunately, less and less Bronxites are being given assistance through the food stamp program, causing an even more pressure on an organization such as this one to help those families out. Theresa, who's Director of Communications, is here now to explain further. And Theresa, good to have you.
Thank you.
As we said, you guys have changed a whole lot throughout the years, and you're pretty much intensified and also doing some service providing. So where are you guys at now in terms of what you're doing?
Well, let me just preface this by saying we don't represent 100 soup kitchens and food pantries, and we represent close to 1,100 soup kitchens and food pantries in New York City. And so our scope is pretty broad, but I think that our motto sums it up, and that is moving people beyond the soup kitchen. We are not just an anti-hunger organization, but also an anti-poverty organization. And so we attack it in a multifaceted approach. We realize that hunger is a long-term issue, and while we rely on food pantries and soup kitchens, after a day of eating or maybe getting food from a food pantry and eating for a few days, you're hungry the next day or the next week. And so we really focus on policies, funding, legislation that will really go toward finding long-term solutions to hunger. And so we do that in a number of different ways, and I can...
Yeah. I mean, you got a few programs, and we got a few minutes. So let's talk about a couple of the programs.
One of the programs is our Benefits Access Department, and we do pre-screening for SNAP, which is also known as the Food Stamp Program. You know, the difference sometimes for people using what little money they have for food, they have rent, they have other necessities, especially if they have children, and using that money for food just is not feasible. And so being able to use this benefit, this federal benefit, food stamps, really goes a long way. So we advocate that. And so in our Benefits Access Department, we do pre-screening. People call our office and they find out if they qualify. If we find that they qualify, then we set them up with an appointment so that they can apply online. They bring their documents in, and unfortunately they have to go through one final step, which is finger imaging by HRA. But after that, families are able to get food stamps to help sustain them. One of the other programs we have is actually a national program. We have a national AmeriCorps Vista program. It's called the Anti-Hunger and Empowerment Corps. And so we use these service volunteers in over 16 states throughout the country to provide capacity building for soup kitchens and food pantries. Usually these organizations are small, volunteer run, and so they need help with fundraising, volunteer management, volunteer recruitment, and so we use our service members in that way. One of the things that I do is not just communications, but also government relations. And so in that respect, looking at legislation and policy on the city, state, and federal level that can actually affect change. One of the things that we're supporting on the city level is the Living Wage Bill, Fair Wages for New Yorkers Act, which is being considered in the City Council right now, which would provide a living wage for people working in developments that receive some level of city funding. An example of that sort of project, which is exempt under this bill, would be like Yankee Stadium, received a lot of money from the city, and so a development like that would have to pay its employees $10 an hour plus benefits, or $11.50 without benefits. That project was completed before this bill came up, but future projects that receive substantial funding from the city would be required to pay their workers a living wage.
And speaking of New York City, there is some intense battle going on, particularly in regards to food stamps, and you guys, and you know, your stance with the mayor in regards to food stamps. Share a little bit about that.
Well, as I mentioned before, in our Benefits Access Department, we are very much opposed to, and have been actually for the better part of a decade, to the finger imaging or fingerprinting requirement for food stamps. Right now, New York City, not New York State, but New York City and the state of Arizona are the only two places in the nation that require applicants to be finger imaged before they can complete the application process for food stamps. And so we see that as a hindrance. One of the reasons proffered is that it prevents fraud, but the only type of fraud that it is designed to prevent is the duplication of cases. And that sort of fraud can actually be detected and prevented in a much more feasible, less intrusive, less humiliating way, and that's by social security number matching. And so every year the city spends, tons of money administering the finger imaging requirement. It forces people to take, hours, a full day off of work if they even have a job. They have a hard time looking for a job because they're spending the whole day in the HRA office to be finger imaged. And so we know that some people, because of that requirement, don't even bother going through the process. And so there's so many people who could be eating more healthy, affordable food with the help of SNAP or the food stamp program, but just don't even go and complete the application because of the finger imaging requirement. So we really want to get that abolished here in New York City so that more people can be able to afford the food they need.
If you will, there's so many people out there who are affected by both hunger and poverty. Many may be watching our show right now, and some in low-income housing, things of that nature. What are some of the resources that are readily available to people who feel as though they don't have, they have nowhere to go?
Well, again, and we support the work of the nearly 1,100 soup kitchens and food pantries in New York City. We are not a direct service provider, and we know that the 1.5 million people in New York have to rely on those. Again, what I would encourage people to do is, first of all, find out what benefits you qualify for. Again, that goes toward actually seeing if you find out if you could apply for SNAP or food stamps, WIC. One of the other things that we have at NYCCAH is a CSA program. It stands for Community Supported Agriculture. And we have it actually in 6 different neighborhoods throughout the city. We're going to have one in Staten Island this year. And you can get fresh fruits and vegetables delivered from a regional farm every week. The one thing about our CSA that is different is that it accepts SNAP. So it is on a sliding scale. Everyone qualifies regardless of income. And so it's a way to sort of hopefully supplement your cupboards, your refrigerator with fresh fruits and vegetables that are not readily available, because there's so many neighborhoods in New York City, especially for people in low-income neighborhoods where fresh air markets, farmers markets, supermarkets are not available and you can't get that fresh fruit. So those are some of the things that we support. If you are hungry right now, I think we've all seen it, these long lines outside soup kitchens and food pantries. Right now they're getting longer and longer. The unemployment rate in New York City is 9.1%, which is higher than the national unemployment rate. And so again, find out what benefits you qualify for. We know that there are some hindrances, but go for it anyway, because our tax dollars have paid for it. Your tax dollars paid for it. And so we encourage you to get the benefit that you've already bought into and recoup what you can. And so that's what I would tell someone in immediate need.
Hunger and poverty always go hand in hand, it seems. Talk a little bit about the correlation between hunger and poverty.
Wow.
Was that too deep?
No, it's not too deep. It's not too deep, Darren. Again, it does go hand in hand. Right now, we are in a very unique economic situation. I'd say a few months ago, we issued a press release based on figures from the USDA, the United States Department of Agriculture, that showed in the 3 years before the recession, 2005, 2006, and 2007, compared to the years during and after 2008, 2009, and 2010, hunger in New York State increased 56%. And so you see that correlation between the recession, job loss, decline, what was happening on Wall Street, and this huge surge in hunger. And so that right there is a perfect example of how they correlate. Again, when we are seeing right now a shrinking of a middle class, there are people who are applying for food stamps, or people who are going to food pantries and soup kitchens that never thought they would have to. I mean, they were working full-time jobs. They've been working for years. Some of them are college educated, masters, PhD, and because of the lack of jobs, lack of resources, companies downsizing, all of a sudden you have this new group of people who are now dealing with food insecurity. And so when you have these sort of economic situations happening, it definitely correlates to hunger and poverty. Now there's another facet to that, because there are people who have been hungry and suffering from hunger long before the recession and have continued to do that. Right now the South Bronx is the hungriest congressional district in the United States. And so we also look at how race and how demographics and how social policies also affect poverty and are designed to keep certain demographics in an area where they are not able to receive the resources that they need.
We want to tell you that you can get more information at the New York City Coalition Against Hunger. Let's give the website once again. www.NYCCAH.org. And you'll be able to find out more information there, so we encourage you to find out more information as the fight continues. And we, of course, will continue to let you know more about the struggle with New York City. And thank you for coming and sharing with us.
Thank you so much.
Good to have you.
Thank you.